So, why I am not getting the surgery? A lot of people, a lot of people actually, not just like free people, have been asking me quite a few questions about bottom surgery lately, and it's getting to the point where I feel like maybe, just maybe, I should answer some of these people. But, you know, I'm gonna do that because I had ADHD, so actually sitting down and making this whole thing is enough of a hassle on its own. More of a hassle than top is for you. Nah, not really, but anyway, now let's get into it. So I have a few reasons for not needing bottom surgery. So I will start by sharing the first one, which is functionality. Okay, so functionality. Where to begin with functionality? Well, first, let me start off by explaining exactly what I mean. So, as most of you might know, especially my cis female viewers in the house, the vagina isn't just a hole, right? It's like saying that the liver is just a pouch. Like the liver is an organ. So when people say that about a vagina, it kind of gets on my nerves a little. Anyway, where better to start with function than reproduction? Yes, reproduction, the thing that is, scientifically speaking, the most accurate meaning of life. Okay, I'm not gonna go off on a tangent. You just imagine that I had explained for you 20 minutes why reproduction, technically speaking, is the meaning of life. Okay, reproduction. Inside the vagina, inside most vaginas that haven't had a hysterectomy or tragic birth defect, etc., there's this thing called a uterus, and it produces estrogen. Wouldn't have to do HRT if I had one. Anyway, that's part of it. So that is why uterus transplants are such a big thing, because if I, let's say, was born cis female and I had a uterus, you know, HRT wouldn't be needed for me at all. It would just be a thing that's like, you know, normal. Like it produces estrogen. It's meant to produce estrogen, etc., right? But that's one reason why I'm passing on bottom surgery, because simple things like that aren't functional, because as you know, the last uterus transplant ever attempted on a trans woman left the trans woman dead. And I don't want to die. I don't know about you guys, but I don't want to die. But that's one reason why I'm not. The uterus thing is just one example, right? Like, anyway, back to what I said about the vagina being an organ. So, as an organ, it does things to maintain homeostasis. That includes self-lubricating, self-cleaning, and a host of other things to ensure that it functions and it doesn't stop working the year after you're born, because your body kind of has to work, because if you don't reproduce, you won't spread your genes, and then that means you're over the species. Regardless, that is one major reason, because if it doesn't function like a vagina, like if it isn't functioning well enough to cure my dysphoria, then there's kinda no point, because at that point it's not really helping my dysphoria, and I'd just be getting a surgery to fit a narrative that cis people have made, that like, oh, all trans women go for the surgery. Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I'm not doing it, because it doesn't function. Anyway, on to my next, and that is aesthetics. So, aesthetics and function. The reason why I placed aesthetics second is because I feel like if I started out this video with aesthetics, that it would give the absolute wrong vibe. Like, I'm not gonna come off as some, you know, skin suit wearing creep who just wants a vagina that looks accurate. No, it is not that at all. A lot of people on TERF hate forums like Gender Critical like to push the idea that like, oh, like all trans women are just skin suit wearers who just want an accurate vagina to get off to it. No. That is not me at all, because I have gone through multiple psych exams, and yeah, I'm not gonna kill anybody. Not anytime soon. So anyway, as for the aesthetics, the vagina as well, of course, like everything else, has an anatomy. And neovaginas haven't yet progressed to the point of accurately replicating that anatomy. So they, to put it lightly, don't look very realistic. And it took me a while to figure this out when I was like an egg, and when like I had just come out, like just starting HRT, just doing everything. So I eventually started researching, and I started looking at them. Like, I'm not the type to say that I've never seen a cis woman's vagina before, because, spoiler alert, I definitely have. But trans women's I had not seen many of, because there's not very much exposure, and like I didn't want to like just go through looking at trans porn for research, because chances are that would not be accurate and it wouldn't give me a good enough depiction. So I just bided my time on trans subreddits, just sort of looking at post-op results, looking at them while they were healing, looking at them while they were done, and I determined that the aesthetics are not very good. One notable example of this is that the anatomy of the clitoral hood on a neovagina isn't defined. It isn't accurate. It looks almost nothing like it, and 99% of the time, that particular part of the vagina is clearly absent. All of the outer anatomy doesn't look quite correct, and even the inner anatomy, there is no vaginal musculature that appears after it's done, and there is pretty much nothing inside it but colon tissue. Like, it doesn't have the texture a vagina does or anything like that. It doesn't self-lubricate either. It's not quite as accurate as I would like, and that's one major reason why it wouldn't really help my dysphoria, because it would sort of serve as a reminder instead of a cure. Like, it would basically be saying, oh yeah, you don't have a cis woman's vagina, you're not a cis woman, you're not accurate. Like, it would basically serve as a reminder of that and make my dysphoria worse instead of making it better. And that is another reason why I'm passing on it, because the general aesthetics of the operation is not to the level where I would want it, where I could get something that will pass, that will hold up, that will be entirely functional, all those sort of things. With that said, I am now going to move on to the more personal side of things. In other words, dysphoria and how it represents in me. So, as for the dysphoria that I get from it, I do not get very much bottom dysphoria personally. It isn't the worst. Like, I don't burst out into tears every time I take off my pants. No, it's far from that, actually. Granted, I do not like having a dick. I hate it. I would get rid of it if there was a suitable alternative for it, but there is no suitable alternative. Now, you might be asking, oh, well, reassignment surgery is the only option to help you. How can you decline it? And I say because it doesn't really affect me as much as most trans girls make it out to be. You see, just like anything else, there are vocal minorities that perpetuate things, and one of them is with trans girls. You see, the one stereotype about trans girls is that they're always, quote-unquote, and cis guys have said this, men who get their dicks cut off, apparently, is how they see us. And the trans community is passively confirming it, because reassignment surgery is literally one of the most discussed trans topics, more than top dysphoria or anything. But for me, at this point in time, I could kind of care less. You see, I don't have much bottom dysphoria. I do not like getting off like how guys do. I do not like penetrating, being on top with penetrating. Basically doing anything that guys like doing, I don't like doing it. People might ask how I get off, and well, that is a f***ing topic for another video entirely, but I'm just gonna say one word: vibrators. Anyhow, the dysphoria from that is in no way comparable to other types of dysphoria, such as top dysphoria. Now, top dysphoria, I find, is really underreported. It is really underrepresented. There are way more people who talk about bottom surgery than top surgery when it comes to trans women. Now, for trans guys, it's the reverse. All they talk about is, like, top dysphoria, and bottom dysphoria isn't a thing that seems to be often discussed. Now, I'm making a bit of assumptions, and that's because I haven't spent quite as much amount of time in the FTM community, but I can say that when I was in the FTM community, the majority of dysfunctions or discussions revolved around top dysphoria, not bottom dysphoria. But anyway, top dysphoria is what I have the worst, and it's, as I said before, severely underrepresented. Now, you might be thinking, what the fuck does top dysphoria mean? And I'm going to explain that. So, real quickly, top dysphoria, basically dysphoria about the top self, dysphoria about having breasts, dysphoria about not having breasts, etc. So, trans guys get mastectomies to get them removed. Okay. But for me, as far as what my dysphoria manifests as, it manifests as me being dysphoric, that I am flat-chested. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, you know, being flat-chested, that is something cis women experience, it's not dysphoria. And to that, I say, it's kind of bull***, because here's the thing, dysphoria can represent itself as, well, sex dysphoria, you know, secondary sex characteristics, etc. And breasts are a female secondary sex characteristic, so it would make sense that I should be able to have dysphoria about it, right? And I do. Like, I can barely shower, I end up usually crying or feeling really shitty after I shower because of top dysphoria. Like, when I take off my shirt, I just get that feeling of, oh, f***, and I start feeling terrible, right? Pads aren't forever either, because when I sort of put on pads, you know, I have to take them off at the end of the day. But my point is, top dysphoria exists too. Now, why did I just discuss top dysphoria for a while? Well, it's what I have worse. See, my bottom dysphoria isn't that bad, but my top dysphoria is really bad. So, answer me this. If you had bad top dysphoria, why would you go out of your way to get a surgery to fix something that you weren't dysphoric about anywhere near as much? That's kinda what I'm experiencing with not getting bottom surgery, because my bottom dysphoria, I don't doubt that I have bottom dysphoria, but what I will say is it is nowhere near as bad as my top dysphoria. So it wouldn't make sense for me to pour hundreds of thousands of dollars into a surgery that doesn't even fix the most crippling of my problems that are dysphoria related. And that's another reason why I'm choosing to not get it. Because, I mean, if I had bottom dysphoria, like if I had really bad bottom dysphoria, everything else I had said earlier in this video really wouldn't matter. I'd get bottom dysphoria because it would be so bad that I could hardly tolerate it, right? But that's not the reality. The reality of it is, I have top dysphoria way worse than I have bottom dysphoria. And that's just kind of the harsh truth of it all. So that's one reason why I'm not getting it, because it's ridiculously expensive and it doesn't solve problems. It doesn't fix why I'm dysphoric about my genitals, because dysphoria isn't black and white. Like, I don't just sit there and go like, penis, bad, vagina, good. No, it's more than that. It's really a complicated matter that most people don't grasp the intricacies of, either because they choose to remain ignorant or they just simply aren't educated. Either way, that is why I am not planning to get the surgery, because it isn't at the moment worth it, and it isn't to a point where it would even solve my dysphoria. It would just more be like, oh, okay, you're switching from one type of bottom dysphoria to another type of bottom dysphoria. Good job. Like, it would just be more like that, instead of, oh, hey, your bottom dysphoria? Yeah, that is solved. You know, that's why. One more thing I'd like to add, because the video recording cut off early. Another thing that I was saying was that it wouldn't also be worth it because it wouldn't have much effect on me passing. Like, for example, breast augmentation. Would it have an effect on me passing? Obviously, yes. Vocal surgery. Would it have an effect on me passing? Yes. Facial feminization, yeah, I could go on forever. But bottom surgery wouldn't have too much of an effect on me passing, because, I mean, no one's really gonna see my genitals anyway. Like, 99% of the people that I walk by and they look at me and say, oh, that's a crossdresser, or oh, that's a woman, you know, whatever they think, they're not gonna look at my genitals. They're not gonna see my genitals. So even if I got the surgery right now, it still probably wouldn't change much, because I still wouldn't pass. That was just another thing that I'd like to add in real quick, because it was a point that I was mentioning, but I had neglected to mention before the video thing ran out of space. So yeah, with that said, I hope you enjoyed this video, and subscribe for more. Let me know what I could do to improve videos like this. Anyway, subscribe for more, and I'll see you all later.